All right, welcome back to the Prowl Podcast. This is Trevor Grice.
Chris Wilcox.
And we are here for episode 14, which we're going to be rolling out right here at the start of the winter sports season. Boys basketball got started last week.
Yep.
Friday, they were one game in, JV and varsity victorious, and girls start tomorrow.
Yep.
And I think some of the other sports, bowling's a little bit later, but I think swim has a meet this week. And
Correct.
wrestling.
And wrestling will kick off here.
I think Wednesday.
Is it Wednesday? Or I want to say Saturday, but
it's definitely this week.
It is this week.
It is this week. So, topic for today, when we get there, we might talk a little bit about some of these sports things, kind of give some updates. But topic for today, as we alluded to last time, is when tough isn't tough enough. And we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But to swing back, just to kind of keep you guys informed, the sports season is starting. We're going to get high school varsity sports are going to be getting going here and have already started, even though it's pre-holiday. It really kicks into high gear after the holidays.
Oh, yeah.
And then I know bowling starts then. They don't have anything before then. But I guess, what are you excited for in this upcoming winter sports season?
Oh, that's a great question. I want to see where boys varsity basketball left off maybe from last year a little bit. Varsity wrestling as well, with Coach Rocco Borg. I know that his middle school just had a fantastic season. So, kind of taking a look at those two sports, maybe a little bit more focused, I guess I'll say. But I'm also intrigued to see where the varsity girls are going to, I guess I'll say maybe pick up at, as we enter into the 2023-2024 season. So, those are the sports that I'm kind of keeping a real heavy eye on. I know that bowling is actually another one. We're usually pretty good at contending at a state level in bowling. So I'm very intrigued on that as well.
Bowling's interesting because there's a couple guys on the team that we know very well.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know they bowled, and apparently they're pretty good. And the one, Tristan Hesselink, had a good year last year, and then his little brother is a freshman now, is in there, Trenton, and obviously we know them from baseball,
yep.
But at the same point, I guess they're both pretty good. So I think they're reloading, as well, which is pretty neat. And one of the more successful teams outside of track and cross country that's been here over the past couple of years.
Very, very steady.
Yep. Myself, I think I'm also excited. So tomorrow's girls varsity, and I'm excited to go up there and just kind of see, obviously, big changes with Adeline moving on.
Yep. And she's off to a fantastic start right now.
Oh, really? Good update.
Yeah. Well, hang on. I know you were going to say that.
All right, you look it up.
She just had some. About a week ago, she had a big win, or they had a big win. She has. I'm trying to think about this. I think she had 8 points. 8 points in the victory. It was like 8 points, 4 boards, couple assists, couple steals. And then the very first game of the season, I think she got in. It was 4 or 6 points. So. She's off to a good start, but I'll give you some stats here in a little bit.
All right. Episode 6 is the interview with Rocco Borg. If you want to go back and listen to that, Chris was kind of alluding to the wrestling coach and I know that if you talk to him, I think he would believe they overachieved last year and went a lot further than they expected to. And so, yeah, excited there. And then, selfishly, I'm excited for basketball, but almost more on the JV side. That's the team my son plays with, and those are the kids that I've coached with Coach Dan Bills down in 8th grade that we've coached over the past couple of years. And so pretty connected with them and excited to just see them on the high school courts. So update with that is they went over to Sandusky and JV won 50-20. They kind of ran away with it, which was really good to see. And then I think high scorers were Ethan Coker. He had, I think, 17, if I'm not mistaken. And then some kid named Xander Grice had 10.
Scrub.
Yeah, well, I'll tell him you said that. And then varsity was, I think it was a good game. It looked like a first game.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
It was definitely a first game, right? Miscues, a little lack of discipline on some of the defensive side of things. Offensively, they looked good. I think they're going to be a little bit cleaner. Obviously, first game, right? You're going to see that. But, I know Coach Shears will get things cleaned up, and I know that squad will get things cleaned up.
Yeah, I think most of the time was pretty happy to see some certain things. We were talking before we hit the go button here, and seeing Valen on the court after a year off and watching him, make a bucket. And
that's a big deal.
I know he's put a lot of time to come back. And if you don't know his story, obviously he was the starting quarterback for varsity boys this year. But after the football season last year, he had a shoulder injury that required surgery, and then he had to sit out winter sports, and then also sat out spring baseball, which he normally played. Was able to do track.
Yep.
So shout out to Valen making it back. And then I think in terms of new guys coming on, Julian Wilding I think looked pretty good in his.
I'm impressed with him. Really, I am. His kind of composure and demeanor on the floor. He's a basketball player. Flat out, he's a basketball player. I got to see him a couple times in some open gyms with Connor McGarry. But he truly is. He's a ball player that sees the court. I believe understands the game very well. And not only does he want to succeed, he wants others around him to succeed as well.
Yeah. And you referenced Connor, who did lead the team in scoring, 29 points. And then right behind him was Evan. Evan Lang made 19, I believe.
19 points, yep.
So,
well, real quick while we're talking about points, because I did want to pull it up, talking about Adeline. She's off playing at the University of Chicago. I'm just going to go ahead and give you her averages right now. But she's currently shooting 50% from the floor. She is 40% from behind the arc, and she has 20 rebounds, and she's averaging 4.3 points a game. Everybody's like, wow, that's not a lot. That's pretty good for an incoming freshman.
Yes.
She's had a game high 11 points, and that was against North Central Illinois. So that was I might as well say it was a big game for her, right? Along with 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 steal. So
awesome. That is great to hear, and I think that is one of those things that we want to do here, on the Prowl podcast, and Tiger's Den is keep track of those care athletes that are moving on.
Yeah.
Like someone we have an update on is Trevin Phillips. A lot of people don't know, but he ended up doing track at SVSU and he qualified for nationals, right?
Yeah. He now holds the school record at SVSU for the javelin. So it's pretty cool. I ran into him at Applebee's over in Saginaw one day and kind of got chatting with him. So he's doing well. Trevin's a great kid. Just you see so many athletes go on, and obviously I've called quite a few of them over the past 15 years, being on the radio and such. But you always want to kind of maybe follow up, see where they're at, what they're doing, and when you follow up on them, it's always fun. To me, it's fun because you get to experience where they've gone and what they're doing now, instead of them living in that moment of being a high school athlete. Yeah. They're probably most have kids, or have gotten married, or where they're at in college. And like I said, this is the past 15 years I've been doing it that long so far. So to me, it's just, it kind of maybe sets me back in my seat a little bit and go, wow, you've been out of school that long, but yet you've been doing it this long, which is fun. It really is. It's truly fun.
I remember as a kid, waiting on Saturday mornings, watching, Michigan State play to see if Mark Bloom would get in.
Oh yeah.
And because he was from Cairo, right? And he was one of the last guys off the bench. But if they got a blowout, he would get in. And then obviously 97 graduate such as myself, Josh Aslan. Good friends in school, played basketball with them, and then I went to Eastern. He was down in Michigan, so we would roll over, watch him, and then hang out after, go get some food, and just really cool to see.
Right.
Someone who went on, didn't get a taste of the NBA, but played over in Europe and had made a career
out of it. Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
And I know that you and I fully hope and expect that we're going to have people that we coach to do that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which kind of segues into why we want to do this topic today, right? And why we actually kind of feel pretty confident that will happen.
Oh, yeah. Oh, 100%.
In terms of us watching some of these people that we've coached go to the next level and follow them, no different than we're following Adeline now. And that is this idea when tough isn't tough enough. So I posted this. I kind of posed this topic to you after we got done recording one of the other ones about something I wanted to do, because I kind of noticed it. It was during football season, and football is a tough sport.
Very tough.
Okay. And you talk about toughness, and you see kids playing through things, Wyatt Waterman had a bad ankle for like the last 4 games,
Yep.
right? Did his best to get out there and play and put that time and effort in. And shout out to him for doing that, right? I mean, that means a lot. I know he was trying to do that for his team. And you would look at that and say, that's being tough.
Yep.
But what are we really trying to say here when I say, and I'll let you do the big reveal, when I say that tough isn't actually tough enough?
It comes down to the mental side to a certain level. And, the way that I feel about it, maybe I'm going into this, maybe instead of ankles deep, maybe I'm going knees deep, but you need to have a failure of some sorts to actually prepare you to succeed. You get the opportunities out of that. Failure brings opportunities, and within opportunities, you find success. And I think that, great example, taking a look at this past football season. Do I feel that was a successful year for Carroll football? Yes, 100%. I feel...
But Chris, they only had 3 wins.
It doesn't matter. It's not always about the wins. And I hope people really understand that it truly is not about the wins. You have so many people that are win-focused and ring-focused nowadays, right? You get these rings or these medals, or it's not all about the wins.
Okay, we were just talking about this. 11-1 Ohio State Buckeyes. Successful season?
Yeah. Well, why did I just say yes to Ohio?
No, it wasn't. Like, if you ask them, they would tell you it wasn't because
yes for them in the standpoint. If you look at where they were at, yes, no, because they didn't win the game,
which is really the only one that matters.
That's the only one that matters,
right? Yeah. And so success is so different. Like you can hear a lot of people say, "Well, they win 11-1, Ryan Day, blah blah blah," and yet they would tell you it wasn't successful. And you can sit here and say 3 wins is successful for a Carroll football squad,
right? It's just the understanding, right? First year head coach Rob McDaniel. You're coming in, you're implementing not only a new offensive, defensive system. Trying to understand your players' strengths, your players' weaknesses, so you can build off of those. There's a lot there. Like you have to have that stuff in order to be successful.
Yeah.
Like you have to have it.
So we are unapologetically going to brag a little bit this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if there's one thing that I know, I don't even think. There's one thing that I know.
Well, I know there's one thing that you know, but there's definitely 2 things that you really know.
Is that you and I built, with the assistance of some other people, built an incredibly mentally tough team that we've had for the past 3 years and we've stepped away from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Not even a question.
No.
Not even a question.
No.
To the point where we are losing 9-0 in a baseball game and know we're going to win.
Yep.
And we did.
And we did.
With possibly the worst inning I've ever seen in my life.
It was bad. It was bad. It was real bad. But that goes to the point of these kids we put these kids in situations where they would fail, and we put them in scenarios that they would fail to only build them up for when it mattered most, and that was during the game. When it comes to the game time action, these kids respond in a manner such as understanding what they need to do in that decisive moment. Understanding what their role is. For us in baseball, a little bit different than someone in basketball, right? Understanding that sacrifice bunt meant a big deal. These kids understood that the pickoff at second base meant a big deal when that runner's in scoring position. Turning that double play was a big deal. When you're ahead, we'll call it 11-9. It's things like that are big deals. Putting kids in those situations where they're going to strive not only physically but mentally as well. Let's not be. I guess I don't want to look past you have to break them down mentally first to build it up.
But it can be done. Yes, but the right way.
Correct. Absolutely. 100%.
Right.
100%.
And so what it really comes down to here, because I let you be the honorary psychologist there for a little bit. But now we'll let the big dog talk, right? No.
I just stayed at a Holiday Inn last night.
Okay. We've stayed at a lot of Holiday Inn Expresses,
I know, a lot of them.
It's about teaching them what resilience actually looks like. But it has to be through a certain amount of failure, right? In that first year, no one believed that we should be doing what we were doing. But we did it on purpose, knowing it could fail miserably, and that was okay. That was part of the plan. It didn't fail miserably. it's actually succeeded amazingly, and then actually made the
beyond our expectations.
Beyond our expectations, which actually made the next year even tougher when it wasn't as successful because we took the challenge up a whole nother level when maybe we weren't physically ready for it.
Even though I felt that year would have been probably our most successful year.
Correct. And we've talked about that,
Yeah.
and you and I, it was our least successful year from the standpoint of a record. All right.
But mentally, it built us for the year that we had this previous year.
And one particular tournament
Yep.
in Branson, Missouri, which was in terms of a week, I don't think I will have, unless kids that I know make the major leagues, probably will never be matched in terms of a week of baseball.
I would 100% agree with that.
And it was hanging out with kids in a dorm-like experience, and that was in its own way good. But watching them play at the top of their game and be the kings of the whole place, having people come and watch us play to scout us, because when they were ready to play us, and have everybody talk about us, there was no greater feeling because they were the dudes there.
Oh, they were flat out the dudes. No questions asked.
A team that was barely 500 at that particular point in the year.
Yeah.
Under 500.
We were under 500 going into that tournament. And, we ran off 7 straight. Eight straight. Yeah, 8 straight wins. We ended up losing in the championship game. But I'm going to tell you what, those kids got put through. We talk about mentally tough, not just mentally tough. That day, physically exhausted. I know earlier in that week we had the hottest temperatures down in Branson that we had ever played in. I know for a fact that I've ever seen those kids play in. They were talking like almost 120, 130 on some of the spots on the turf when they were measuring it. Like it was the humidity. Like it was unbearable.
That's the reality.
Correct.
But our kids were trained that what is it?
It's nice and cool out.
It's baseball weather.
It is baseball weather.
No matter if there's a baseball game happening, the only acceptable response is it's baseball weather.
It's baseball weather.
And that's what's going to happen. They have the same experience, right? But you see other people we go into much more depth on how we had a couple things not go our way. That's okay. Like that's beside the point. But that's the difference between tough and mentally tough.
Yeah.
Because we can know those things and say, okay, those things happen, but whatever. And yet sometimes, and this is so what is the purpose of today? It's actually to kind of put out to some coaches that might be listening, to put out to some parents about why it's important. Parents are like, well, I'm not a coach. It's like, yes, you are. Like you're the first coaches,
yep.
Right? Why it's important to literally sabotage your kids, to make sure they fail so they can learn how to deal with that and not give them excuses, right? Because how many times do you hear parents say, well, yeah, but if that ump or that ref or that, like, no. What are you going to do to get better?
Right.
What are you going to do to make sure this doesn't happen next time? How are you going to better prepare for the heat, right? Put a vision out there, which reminds me of that all-star team that we had. A bunch of those young kids going to run. It's just literally, it's Carroll Little League All-Stars. But every single day, it was the hottest summer we've had in a long time.
Oh, it was miserably hot.
Because I asked you to help a little bit, right, when you could. And we finished every practice by me yelling at those kids running around the field, say, you need to prepare for 100-degree temperatures and you need to know how to work in this. And they would run, some of them to the point of exhaustion, right? But it wasn't unreasonable.
No.
And then when it came to that season, it was still hotter than blazes throughout that year. And we're playing 5 games in a day over in Brown City or whatever. Who brings home the trophy? Because who's still able to play, right? A bunch of 9, 10-year-olds in a 12U tournament.
Yeah. That was a fun tournament, by the way. that was a blast of a tournament.
I mean, we don't have it. Shout out Owen LaPratt, because he made a literal Superman dive at shortstop to end that game, and there is no physical it's only in my head.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, the dive that he made probably is still one of definitely my top 3, if not close to the top 2 moments. And I have some
baseball,
just
that year.
Of coaching, just coaching, just coaching. I've had some pretty good moments, but
I figured Mason Hayes would be top 5.
Oh, Mason Hayes is up there. Trust me, Mason Hayes is up there. I mean, I've seen some stuff. I know you've seen some stuff. But to see a kid lay out for a ball the way that he laid out for a ball. And those who may not understand the name Mason Hayes, he is not from Carroll.
He did play 1 year in Little League.
He did play 1 year in Little League over here. But he is known as Big Plays Hayes. And there's a reason he earned that name, flat out earned that name. He would get to any ball that was hit.
Center field.
Yeah, center fielder. But Owen LaPratt in that Brown City tournament to really just seal the deal on was that our Elmont team, right? Or was it Armada? Armada, yeah. On an Armada team that pretty much kind of looked at our boys and was like, yeah, okay.
I was the most fired up, like, I don't know if you remember, but I'm literally jawing at the other team because they're toast and they're walking out. And it's like, can we get this game going so we can go home and celebrate?
Yep.
Because our kids are running out there. They're ready to go take their positions, and they're lollygagging as the light's going away. When I think of that particular play, and some of this has to do with knowing the kid, some of this has to do with coaching him throughout, I know that he did that for Carroll.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that was we talk about names on the back and names on the front. And let's be honest, everybody's always playing for the name on the back. You can't actually extract that out. But will you actually make the plays for the names on the front? And I'll be honest, the reason I say that, and I'm alluding to it a little bit, is I would have never picked him as the kid that would dive for that ball and make it. And that's nothing against him. It's just nothing he ever had done before.
True. Very, very true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
But in the moment when it mattered, he did. And I would say that I trusted him to do that. That's why he was in that position. He was playing shortstop. He was there for that reason, because I did trust him, right? So that goes back to this whole preparation of what are you building around there? What are you preparing for? Who is it for? All of those types of things. And you pick out these different things. And in that moment, and we got to remember, this is the middle of summer. It's hot and it's dusk, which means it's 9 o'clock, not 7:30, not 5:30 like it gets dusk now. It's 9 o'clock, and we'd been there all day because we had a morning game where we tied Reese over on a different field that started at 9 a.m.
That was an early morning.
Right? I think it might have been 8 a.m.
I think it was 8 a.m., yeah.
Right. So these kids had gone literally over 12 hours in 100 degree, or we'll say 90 degree. I don't know if it reached 100 that day. But it's about preparation. It's about being there before. It's about thinking ahead and playing for something more. And it's about realizing I have prepared, so I am not letting in we'll call the weakness, right? We hear people say that. But what it is it's the thoughts, right? It's the thoughts of I am tired. That's a thought that you can make and manifest.
Yep.
But it's also a thought you can keep at bay, right? Because with our team that has been pretty successful, we'd have our pictures. Kids are jumping. Because we've won a few tournaments.
A few.
We jump around, celebrate. And 10 minutes later, what are we getting from the parents as we're driving home?
Pictures of the kids sleeping hardcore.
Passed out. Literally zonked. Because then they finally let it down. It's time to finally turn it off. And it's minutes and they're gone.
You know, the best, I think one of the best things I've been around while coaching, and probably coaching with you, is that question. The question that Trevor Grice always loves to ask the kids. Are you tired yet? That's a trick question.
Of course it is.
It's a big trick question. Obviously, if they say yes, well, guess what? There's more. If you say no, well, guess what? There's more. So there's always I don't know if I want to call it a reward. There's always a reward at the end of that question, because really
it's a consequence.
Well, you kind of actually have to look at it as a reward, because at the end of it and through all of that, you're going to get a bigger reward potentially at the end of a tournament or at the end of a game, right? Those are what the bigger rewards are. You know, it's about putting the work in now so you can be successful later on. It's about failing and understanding what failure is to be successful and have that opportunity to turn it into success. Not a lot of people are able to do that. Not a lot of people are able to take failure and go, oh man, you could just stop. You could block it off. You could turn the other cheek. I have to say, with a group of kids that we coached, there was none of that. There's a lot of times where they could have looked at you and said, you know what, yeah, we're done. We're going to pack it in. There was none of that. I don't think ever. There was maybe a couple times I think they were close. It was like, yeah, no, we can do this. Even from the point of being down, 9-0, down in Kentucky and coming back and winning that game. I feel that a lot of kids from the age of, I'm going to say 10, need to be almost pushed to the point of failure to actually understand. So, and I don't want to get too harsh on, I got to push my kid to make sure that he fails at the age of 10. And he's 10 or she's 10, right? Like you don't have to, but you want them to understand what failure is, though. You have to have them understand and that's where sports is such a great thing, because somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Sorry, but you're not getting a participation trophy.
So that's where I come in with that statement of sabotaging, like your own kids for their own benefit, right? We get stuck. I know you love that chair, but it's a loud chair.
I do. It was a loud chair. Sorry about that.
So yeah, that's what you're hearing.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll post in Tiger's Den the picture of this chair.
I do love this chair.
It's my chair, but you still love it.
I do.
Anyway, and I tell my kids all the time, one of the biggest blessings and a curse that they've had is they were born to a psychologist who's been running experiments on them since the moment they were born, but not really like experiments,
No, he has. Don't lie. I know.
But, just there's things I believe in terms of human behavior and other things that I've been able to put into practice with them. And, I'm proud of both my kids. I'm very proud, just as any parent would be. And I think they are, I think, what do I want to say? I think they're resilient kids. I think that's a combination of how we raised them, but I think it's also, and cannot be undermined, or, the one that's behind you, Xander, has played at this particular point in his life over 800 competitive baseball games. And I understand not everybody can do that. That's a choice that we made as a family. We've made sacrifices to let that happen. But if you were to go out to the baseball fields this year and watch him on Carroll Varsity, if he makes it again, right, he did last year, you're going to see a kid that looks calm, cool, and collected. And that's because he's seen it all. And he really hasn't, but for a kid his age, he kind of has.
For a kid his age, he has. Certainly, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
And so it's not about being nervous. He'll tell you he's nervous, but he also knows what to expect because when you've seen almost all of it, you're not going to be surprised. He's seen 90 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He knows how to adjust to that. Even if it's not going to be that great to hit, he still has seen it before. Whereas other kids, what happens, right? Because we had this issue.
Freeze.
And they're jabbering in the dugout, and you literally can watch it just wah, 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 wah.
Step down, step down, step down, step down, step down.
So learning to deal with that adversity. Okay, we have a dude pitching. We have to shift. It ain't going to be an 11 to 7.
I want to go back to that real quick because that did happen to us. It happened to us this previous year. Happened to us in an earlier tournament, and we got to see that team later on. Mm-hmm. And they figured, hey, well, we threw them the first time against you and, shut them down. Well, guess what didn't happen the second time around? And a lot of that is we drew attention to that very, very quickly after the game was done. There was a lot of talk in the dugout about how hard the kid was throwing, how fast he was throwing, so on and so forth. And I feel that we as coaches did a good job of kind of buttoning that up after the game was over.
But it did require the loss.
Correct.
We don't get the other win in the championship of a tournament.
Correct. Against that team
without the loss in pool play.
Correct.
To that team.
Yep. 100%.
Right. And yet it also takes the kids, because what ended up happening is they realized, well, they're probably going to pitch this kid, and he didn't start that game, but they brought him in quickly, and then we still lit him up because they had adopted this it ain't happen again mentality.
Yep.
Right, which is a resilience thing.
Yep.
Right. So where are we going? Because I don't really want this to be a whole big kind of, oh, wow, Trevor and Chris had this success with baseball. That's not what it's about. Because I think we would both tell you the success has little to do with records and more to do with how we feel we prepared those 11 kids for what comes next.
Yeah.
Right? So how do we take that and transition it over? How can we help others do that? And it really just is stop snow plowing for your kids. Stop. And if you don't know what that is, it's literally putting the blade on and clearing a clean path so they can walk without slipping and not having to trudge through the snow. Like make them walk through the snow. And I don't mean that literally, but I kind of do.
Yeah.
Right. Let them fail. Let them fall down. Let them pick themselves back up time and time again so they know they can do it. Because if you don't, they then rely on you to do it, even at the age of 18.
And they're going to rely on you after the age of 18 and later in life as well. And listen, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be there to help your kid out. I'm not saying that at all. But your son or daughter will end up having to fail in life in order to succeed in life at some point.
It's absolutely necessary. You do not learn. You and I've talked about this. You do not learn from winning.
Correct.
Unless you take and you kind of hear NFL coaches talk about this, unless you look at game tape and see why the other team failed and learn why they failed, right? Then you can learn, but that's still learning from failure. It's learning from their failure, not from your success.
Right.
right?
Yep.
And you have to find the things that you can work on. Dan Campbell's saying all the time, we got things we need to clean up, this, and this. He's not looking at the good things. I mean, he'll put his accolades out there because people need to hear it. Oh, Sam Laporta had a good game yesterday. Yes, he did. But that's his job. Like, if Dan Campbell wants to be honest with you, he'd be like, that's what he's supposed to do. And what I'm actually more upset is how we handled this particular running scheme and why we let them come back in the game and why that coverage is broken down, because good coaches are always looking at what can be touched up. And yet he will celebrate for that 1 hour afterwards. And it's fun to watch him do that, So, because this really isn't a conversation about succeeding on a field. It's more about succeeding in life, right? And we're not here saying that we're, perfect parents. I mean,
far from it.
Chris and I both know some of the significant failures each other has made. We've been present for them.
Yes, very early on.
And so we know we've seen each of us at, I wouldn't say our worst. I'm sure that we've both had worse, but we've seen each other at some of our lowest points as parents and even coaches. So, it's not that, but we needed those times to learn too.
Correct.
Right. I mean, those were our failures that I think we learned from.
And that's the biggest thing, I guess I'll say we as adults are constantly still learning, or you should be anyways, because if you're still not learning, then, well, life might hit you in the face really, really hard. But we're constantly learning day in and day out, and we're learning whether it's about our children, our profession, whatever it may be, we're constantly learning. And if you're not learning, that goes back to the failure side. You're going to fail. You're going to fail. I've said it multiple times. Actually, I think I made a Facebook post. I think Alex might have been in like kindergarten or first grade. I said, I hope my son fails, because from failure comes success, because he won't know what it's like to consistently succeed. And I know it's out there. I just don't know when that post was. Mm-hmm. But I think about that, and man, that's almost 15 years ago. Like, that's a while ago when I said that. And I still have that same mindset. We rolled into a parent-teacher conference, and I said, well, I hope he does fail. And the teacher kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? Well, then he's going to have to figure it out. By far, he's not at that point of he's going to fail his classes by any means. He's an A student. But, when it comes down to it, yeah, I want him to, because let's be honest, how many times did you listen to your parents when you were younger? Exactly.
I think listening versus hearing. I heard them.
You heard them. You just didn't listen to them.
Because what you can say now, as a 45-year-old guy sitting here is that I can repeat some of it back because now it makes sense. And was that their fault for saying it in the wrong way? I can tell you how messages are delivered is a big deal, right? It's a
very big deal.
That's something I've learned in working with kids is it's all about how the message is delivered. And so, but they weren't wrong, right? Yeah. They weren't wrong. But it does take a certain amount of vision to see it through and say, now I get it, right? And I try to do that with my kids too. Hey, you don't know what I'm talking about now. Someday you will, because it might not be for them right now, but I want them to be good parents to my grandkids.
Right.
To continue. We talk about a lot about family trees, and I want it to be a healthy family tree, right? Growing and sprouting off and all that, because, anyway, that's a different conversation for a different day. But so to bring it back here, mentally tough. And that's a buzzword, right? That people say a lot. And it is really hard to conceptualize and put into terms, but it's invaluable. And it's a skill that, man, is it valuable on a court or on a field? But it's infinitely valuable in life.
Sure is.
And is probably the number one predicted value that is held by anybody you deem successful.
Yep.
And again, success is what you make it, right? It could be 11-1, it could be 3-6, right? I mean, success is whatever it's defined as. And so, I don't know. This has been all over the place. I very much understand that. Chris and I could go on talking about it for a lot longer. But overall, that's just one of those things we're seeing more of it. We're seeing more of a focus on that in sports. We're seeing like in travel sports where teams are hiring psychologists and, basically performance specialists.
Yeah.
Like we sometimes forget about the level of anxiety that happens with individuals. I'm not saying it's unhealthy. You actually need anxiety to perform, but the amount of anxiety that happens through some of these situations to be put in these situations.
Very high.
Right. So, so learning to deal with that and manage that is also very important, to face 90 miles an hour and survive.
And survive, you're right.
If that's what the fear is around, or, or to be at the line with, your team's down by 1 and you got 2 free throws. Are you going to win it? Are you going to tie it? Or are you going to be the guy that misses them? Right. And we talked about that from a journalism standpoint.
Oh, yeah.
How that's changed, right? And how
the social media is, just almost unbearable anymore.
Back in the day, it was the so-and-so team lost with a couple free throws that didn't go in at the end. No names mentioned because of journalism and realizing this is potent and important for kids. And
nowadays, you'll have it posted within seconds on social media.
Who it was,
and why they lost the game for them. Man, I don't know if I could handle that kind of pressure as a 13, 14, 15, obviously 18, even at an 18-year-old. And it takes a special individual that has been essentially maybe trained to be mentally tough in those scenarios. It really does.
Because if you're not, you then, let's get real for a second. Some bad things have happened from that.
Oh, yeah. Very bad things. Yep.
That's unfortunately a very common theme. I mean, we can dance around it, but I will just put it out there. I mean, kids have taken their own life because of that, and It isn't because of the failure of the situation. It's what happens after.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Adults saying things like, you lost us the game. Like, what 17-year-old in their whole entire life wants to let a whole town down? When in fact, that same kid probably dropped 12 points and 10 rebounds. You know what I mean? And wouldn't even get
had the game of his life, but because he missed a free throw or 2 free throws, whatever it may be, now he's deemed a failure.
Yeah. And so these are the things that, I guess, social alert for today. These are the things we got to think about as adults too.
Yep.
Right. Especially
for sure.
Because there's a lot of new people out there just loving their social media, doing things, and the impact can be huge. It can cost you a whole game, as happened up in the Upper Thumb last year.
Yep.
Right. To a team that we know about over just kids being kids in a locker room.
Yeah.
But it got out and completely messed up a whole season for a team.
Very, very quickly.
Very quickly. And, depending on what happens, probably messed up this season too, in terms of how it went down. We'll have to see. But anyway, there's other thoughts.
I don't have a whole lot more. I'm pretty much about thought out.
Okay. Well, that probably has to do with it's past your bedtime.
Yeah, probably pretty close to it. But
all right. So thanks for tuning in. Hey, I think we do have a request. We have a request.
We do.
You don't even know what it is, but you're going to jump on. You trust me, right? You're good.
Yes.
The request is this. You don't really have a whole lot better to do than to support our local teams this winter, don't you think?
Very true. I was going to hit that after you were done, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
Get out, support your local team. Bowling, swimming, basketball, wrestling. I don't think I missed any.
Swimming.
I did say swimming.
Oh, swimming? Okay. Yeah, you did. Now that I think about it.
Get out there, support them. They're going to be, maybe there'll be snow on the ground. I don't know. At this point, there's not. But get out there. Go cheer them on. Go pack the gym. Go pack the bowling alley. Go pack the whatever. Just be there. Be the community that I know Caro is and Caro should be.
In the fall, there's other things to do.
Right.
Right. I get that. Right. And honestly, for the most part, especially in the first part of the season, I felt that we did very well in showing up to those football games. I understand why. it was pretty nasty the last few games.
Yeah.
I will say that a person that sat through every single minute of it, I will be proud of that because I did it, right?
Yeah.
And it did suck sometimes. But I did it because I wanted to prove a point. I wanted kids to see me there knowing that because some of them know me as a coach, right? Yeah. And I want them to know that, hey, I'm here for you. And they may not have even noticed that, and that's okay. But nonetheless, if you're going to get out there and get wet and put everything you have out on a field for this town, I'll be there to support you. But
real quick, you say that, and I got a text message the other day, somewhat unexpectedly, I guess I'll say, a kid not from our town, letting me know that where they were individually, as far as accolades go for basketball, and hoping I would be there when they score their 1,000th point, which I thought was pretty cool. Listen, I never coached this kid in basketball, far from it, but I've been around the kid for a while, and he reached out to me, wanting to let me know, which I thought was pretty dang cool.
I actually had something, I'm not going to go into it at all, but I had a similar thing that was really pretty cool this week too. And that's why we do what we do.
Yep.
It isn't, to this date, I have not got a single dollar for coaching anything.
Neither have I.
Right. So it's not about that. Apparently somebody's dying upstairs. Or
I heard that, yeah.
The roof fell in or something. I don't know. So if you heard that in the background. But this is the winter. And when the spring's out, man, as much as I want you to come out and go to the baseball fields as well, I understand that there's other things, but what are you actually doing now? Ask yourself, what am I doing that I can't go to the home games, right? Go grab a hot dog at the booster, say hi to Chris or Diana.
Yeah, stop on up.
All right.
Join out in the concessions.
Go to the girls tomorrow, girls basketball game. I'm excited to go to see where they're at.
Yep.
And there's a couple girls on that team that they're basically right around my kids' age that are freshmen. They're going to be on the team. I want to see how they're doing, right? I want to see how Brooklyn does. I want to see how Normandy does. And, and then just to see, okay, Coach Riley, how's he working with this? Right? Because he's had a very important person in that team for a long time. And now, hey, how do we move on? Right? Who takes over? How does Alexa do? Gwen and
And he'll be coming up on an interview here in a little bit. Unfortunately, on my side, I haven't been able to connect with him, and it's my fault, not his fault.
So, or the boys.
Yep.
And then what? I was really interested in that Rocco interview in episode 6. If you haven't listened to it, go back to it. It's fascinating. Like Rocco he's a gem, right?
Yep.
I mean, not everybody loves Rocco, but you and I do, and a lot of other people do. And he literally makes differences in kids' lives. That's proven. That's a proven fact. So let's see what he's doing with wrestling. Go up there and see how that works. See how those kids compete and fight. All right, those kids, I guarantee you, will be mentally tough.
Oh yeah, they'll be mentally tough.
So that's our ploy. That's our ask to you is adopt a team and follow them. Because I got to go to a bowling match at some point.
Yeah.
Because I'm really curious to see how it works. I mean.
Well, I think I'm getting roped in. Well, I don't want to say roped in. Roped in's not the word. I did the bowling fundraiser for football, and Trenton and Tristan, I believe, both were there. I know they can bowl. I used to bowl back in the day. I guess I'll say I was okay. I was probably better than okay, but Trenton. I think Trenton was the one that came up to me and said, "I didn't know you bowled." Yeah, I used to bowl. So it's kind of neat. But you're right. Adopt a team. Get out there. Go support a team. Trust me, it won't go unrecognized.
And I really don't think you'll view it as a poor investment of time and money because
no.
I remember the days we talked about this after the region, and this is where we're going to stop. We hosted the divisional and regional games last year in the Caro Gym, and had the place packed. I mean, to the point where it had to be people had to be removed so we could bring other people in. That was part of the whole ticket thing.
Yeah.
We were both active parts in helping with that whole process. And it felt so good as someone who was part of that 97 team that, had a very good season and everybody wanted to come and watch Josh play. And trust me, I saw very little time. All right. There was 13 guys on that team. I was number 13. That's totally okay. I loved it. But every day the community was there supporting us, the pep band, and it was filled. And I hadn't had that feeling in a long time until watching, particularly that regional championship, right?
That place was packed.
It was buzzing.
It certainly was.
It was buzzing. And so we have forgotten somebody. Shout out cheerleaders. They were in Sandusky.
Yep.
Right? They were there doing their thing. So my apologies for leaving them out of that.
Cheerleaders did absolutely awesome this year. Football side of things. I mean, they're standing out there in the weather when it's absolutely horrible. So kudos to Coach Deb Zarowski and her cheer or the squad that she's got there.
Absolutely. So. And I think they have an actual JV and varsity squad, and they're flip-flopping, and there was nobody at Sandusky. There was no cheerleaders there.
No.
We were the only ones there, so that was pretty dang sweet, and I think that'll be something we see a lot of.
Yeah.
Or we'll be the only ones there. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in. This one, it's pretty long, but you know what? I think it's important. It might be a topic we bring up again, just because how we approach kids, not only from athletics, but overall is, we want to make their lives easy, and that doesn't help them at all. It just doesn't.
It does not.
So, but we also don't need to make it painfully hard either, but unless you're just sick like me. So with that being said, thanks for tuning in to the Prowl Podcast. This is Trevor.
This is Chris.
We'll see you next time. Bye.